I was recently asked for some advice on how to communicate with someone when you feel like you are being extremely clear and open and honest, and they're just not reciprocating that clear communication. I absolutely love this question because I have someone in my very close circle who has a difficulty sharing their thoughts through words and quickly replying to communication that I am requesting. And so in this episode, we're going to dive into what to do if the person you're trying to communicate with struggles to communicate back. Let's get into it.
Stop questioning whether or not your actions make a difference. It is time to step into the mindset that you can and will spark positive change at work, at home, and in your relationships. I'm Ann Vogt, your culture coach, here to help you grow your confidence and skills to lead with impact. Here, you'll find real-world stories, communication hacks, and action steps to help you consistently create an environment where you and others thrive. Welcome to What If It Works? Let's create change together.
Welcome to episode 27 of the What If It Works podcast. Today we're talking all about open and honest and clear communication. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I've given tips on phrases that work, how to communicate with someone to get them excited, to move and take action, how to help them take ownership over their work and get them motivated. And this question that I received is so important to address, which is what happens when you are doing your best to openly and clearly communicate with someone else and it is not being reciprocated. I have someone very close to me who really struggles with this. And I actually want to tell you a story of what happened probably about 2 years ago now. I had asked this person a question and kind of got no answer. It was like, I don't know. I don't really know what, whatever. And I was super frustrated because what do you mean you don't know? I am asking you a question about yourself, about something we were discussing. What do you mean you don't know? And so that night, I was just really frustrated that I never got a clear response. 2 days later, I am talking 48 hours later, this person came back to me and was like, hey, I was thinking about your question. Here's my answer. And we had an incredibly open and honest discussion about that situation. And in the end, I came back with, okay, it wasn't that this person wasn't ready to talk to me. It was that they need a little more time to process a request like I had at that situation. And so now, if ever I am looking for an answer, I hope that I'm thinking through it in advance and kind of prompting what I want to discuss, bringing it up a little bit in advance, saying maybe a few things that I want to say, and then like leaving it open. And knowing that a couple days later, when I ask, hey, can we talk about that? This individual is ready to talk to me about it because they have had time to process. So my first piece of advice is if you have someone who just isn't opening back up to you or opening up at all or being honest or giving you their feedback on the spot, maybe you need to set them up in advance so that they can think through their thoughts and formulate an idea or a plan or really think about what their opinion on that matter is so that they can confidently come back and have a conversation with you. So maybe you have someone in your life or maybe you have someone at work that when you ask for their feedback, you're just not getting much out of them. Try to tee it up a little differently. Maybe if you know that the staff meeting is on Wednesday, you prep your team on Monday. At the staff meeting this week, I'd really love to know what people's ideas are around this issue. specifically this topic on its own, right? And now they have 2 days, they've got 48 hours to kind of prepare what are their thoughts so that they come to that meeting or they come to the conversation ready to offer their own advice or their own thoughts. You may be running into someone who's just not confident in their first gut reaction. I am someone who is like, you want to know what I'm thinking? Let's go. And I am ready. I actually had someone describe me once as a machine gun in the nicest way. She was just like, you generate ideas so fast and they fly out of your mouth. And I think it's because you are so used to generating so many ideas that you're not looking for the right one right away. You're just looking to verbally process out loud with someone else all the ideas you can come up with. And then once all the ideas are on the table, and you do a nice job of sifting through them and selecting the one that has, that meets the criteria the best. And when I heard that at first, I was like, is that what you think of me? I'm just this machine gun that rattles off information. And then I observed myself in meetings, in discussions, in conversation. I was like, oh man, my brain does move very fast, and so does my mouth. And so, really, it was great for her to mention that to me because I was able to then slow down, really think about what do I want out of this conversation. Instead of giving my 30 ideas, I'm going to think about it on my own and come with 3 ideas and then get feedback on those 3. I've also, from that advice, really tried, especially during meetings, to like breathe and listen as people are talking instead of getting excited about what's running through my mind and a new idea that I have. If you are someone who generates thoughts quickly and you like to verbally process, but the person that you're talking to really struggles with that aspect, really try to either verbally process with someone else and come to the conversation with 1 or 2 ideas to get their opinions on, or just make sure that you are staying in check with the end result of what you're looking for and stay focused in your conversation on what you want to say so that the person has enough time to really think through their response and isn't being bombarded with all of your ideas. Now, how can you help someone respond respectfully to your clear communication? As you know, I used to be an educator and I worked really hard to clearly communicate what I wanted from my students, what my expectations were for them. And there were students who did not know how to react to that type of clear communication. And so, what I want you to think about today is, what type of reaction are you getting? And why do you think this person is reacting in this way? Let's say you are being really clear and you're getting hit back with, I don't know what I'll call it, maybe like word vomit, where you're asking for a clear, concise reason why something didn't get done, and you are getting bulldozed with excuses on why it didn't get done, right? Maybe you come to talk to someone about a specific idea that you want to put into place because you believe it'll help you be more efficient or more productive. And the person is like, wait, what if we did it this way? What if we did it this way? And you're like, that's not what I was coming to talk to you about. Instead, I wanted to share with you what I was doing instead of asking for your advice and your opinion. So I really want you first reflecting on who you are and how you like to communicate with other people. And then think about this other person specifically. What do you know about them? How do they communicate on a regular basis? What kind of interactions are you having with them? How confident are they in answering the questions that you are posing to them? So really take a moment to reflect on who they are as an individual. Now, for example, my husband is extremely quiet and a little more introverted. I know some of you are like, are you kidding me? How are you, this loud, extroverted human being, married to your exact opposite? And that is literally why it works. But he is very quiet and very introverted. And I have to kind of prep our conversations and say things like, hey, tonight I really want to talk to you about blank. That way, when I go to sit down and talk to him, he's not scrolling on his phone and he's not disengaging because he knows I want to speak to him on this or I want to tell him a story. Sometimes during supper, while we're getting supper ready or while we're sitting down to eat supper, I'll be like, ooh, remind me to tell you the story about bananas. That's our code word. So what this does for my husband, Brian, is it allows him to set aside time for him to be ready to hear my story or hear my discussion that I want to bring up. And he is ready to respond. And so we'll get the kids to bed. He'll close his computer and he'll be like, all right, I'm ready. What's your story about bananas? And I'm like, okay. And then I give him my story. A piece of advice we heard recently, and I don't know if I heard it on an Instagram reel or if I heard it from some sort of personal development like podcast, but it was about giving your spouse 20 minutes and kind of holding them to that 20 minutes. In my past, when I was an educator, I would come home and talk for over an hour. And that was really overwhelming for my husband, who didn't know my students, didn't know my coworkers, sometimes didn't even know my administration. He was like, who are you even talking about? Right. And I would go on and on and on and on. And this made him kind of shut down. He was kind of done after 10 minutes. And so when we heard this 20-minute idea, it did a couple things for us. Number one, made me clearly communicate what I wanted to communicate with him. And there was a time limit. So he knew he wasn't going to have to stay engaged for an entire hour to have these conversations. He knew it was going to be 20 minutes. And now we'll get done putting the kids to bed. And some days he's like, oh, do you have any stories? And some days I'm like, no. And after a few years of this, he's like, really? You have nothing to share with me? You have no stories? And I'm like, no, not really. How about you? And sometimes he is ready with a story and he is prepared to tell me something because he knows that we're going to connect as soon as the kids go to bed. So that's been really helpful for us in a personal relationship, having this idea that we're going to chat for 20 minutes. What's really funny about my husband is that sometimes at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when our kids go to bed, he doesn't have a story. He hasn't really had time to process all his whole day, but we go to bed and it's like 11:15 and he'll be like, are you asleep? I have a story. And then he'll bring up his story and I have to be like, okay, we're doing this now. So maybe there's time for you. You have to find the time and really set expectations around that time. This isn't going to be 20 minutes where I complain, or maybe it is. Maybe you need 20 minutes to get things off your chest. Really set some clear boundaries though with that amount of time to give either your partner or your boss some boundaries around that conversation. Which brings me to another thought. I have had people approach me to talk about, what do I do when my boss is the one distracting me from my work? And I try to clearly communicate to them, I have things I need to do right now. Can we talk later? Right. And trying to set up some boundaries by being really clear, but they are not taking the hint. So let's go there for a moment. You may simply need to say, I noticed that you come in to my office, or you come over to my cubicle, or you come over to my work area right after lunch, looking to have conversation with me. That is a time when I feel the most energized to get my work done because I got refueled from my lunch. So if there's a reason that, or excuse me, don't say that. If you want to speak to me after lunch, if you could just wait till 3 o'clock, that's usually when I start to slow down and my brain is a little more open to have a conversation. That is how you can set your boss up for success and really create some specific boundaries with you.
And not only do we want to set boundaries around time, we also want to set boundaries about what is the end result? What is the communication we are seeking from them, or what is the communication they are seeking from us? This might sound like, I am free at 3 p.m., but what is it you want to get out of our conversation? You are asking for clear communication at 3 o'clock. And that is so important because no one wants to waste their time listening to someone unpack their situation while at work. So you're not only setting boundaries with how much time you're giving them, you're also clearly communicating with them what they want to clearly communicate with you. And the goal would be that they are able then, prior to your 3 o'clock meeting, to process what they want to talk to you about and what the end goal is. That is going to help you in the long run. That was a lot of information. Like I said, some days it's like a machine gun. So let's review. Tip number 1 was set up conversations for a future date, allowing the person that you want to talk to enough time to think through what you need from them, to think through a specific situation so that they are confident in their communication and confident in the answer they want to give you. This could go again for your team. This could also go for people who live with you, especially your spouse. Number 2, make sure that you are reflecting on who you are as a communicator and who the person is you are trying to communicate with. Maybe they are someone who takes a longer time to process. Maybe they are someone who is a little more introverted. Maybe they have been burned in the past when they've been honest. And so they have some fear around opening up to you and telling you what they really think. Maybe there is not trust between the two of you like you think there is, and therefore this person is guarded in their responses. So take some time to reflect on who you've been and how you have tried to approach them with communication, and maybe who they are and what experience they have. Next up, if you find yourself, your boss, a teammate, someone kind of unloading all of their information, and again, this might be yourself, put a time limit on it, right? Give that 20 minutes to your partner. Give that 20 minutes to your boss with an expectation that there is an end result, right? But set some boundaries around how much time we're going to allow for a conversation, or for, again, if it's with your spouse, for just some unloading of information. It is fine as long as you are both being very respectful to the boundaries that you set. And this might be a stretch goal for some of you. Some of you are thinking to yourself, this would have been me a few years ago. There's no way my husband and I are going to sit and chat for 20 minutes without an agenda or without a specific topic, right? But it might be a really good time for you to share situations that are going on. Maybe you're allowed in that time to share some things that are stressing you out. And now you can really gain some clarity over different situations that are happening with you and other people. And so I want you to know that that might be a powerful tool to help someone open up and communicate more by giving it a boundary and calling it what it is. Maybe it's just going to be 20-minute connection time. And now that other person is going to be thinking throughout their day what they want to share with you and how they can open up. The person who originally asked this question was asking it about their spouse. I feel like I clearly communicate, but he doesn't always do that. What can I do to help kind of move the needle and create some momentum with my spouse? And maybe this is something that you can do. My last tip again was just around your boss, not only setting maybe a time limit, but also setting a clear expectation of what are we gaining out of this conversation? Because time is money, right? And they are paying you to do a specific job. And it might not always benefit everybody if there is a lot of time being put to talk and not enough time put to action. As you can see, communication is so important, and this is exactly why it is at the heart of the Lead with Impact cohort that we focus on communication hacks and strategies you can do to lead your people and truly guide them to creating a thriving culture for you and for them, where they truly feel like they are valued and trusted and they are confident in taking action. And you get to witness their growth and support them as they lean into and take on their true potential. If you are interested in learning more about the Lead with Impact cohort, you are going to want to head over to anvote.com/lead-with-impact. I will put the link in the show notes. Head on over there. Click to be the first to know. You'll get an email when the Lead with Impact cohort is launching. Enrollment will open in the next few weeks. The cohort did have to move to March because of some coaching opportunities that came up in February, but it will be happening in the month of March, so you can truly set yourself up for success, sharpen those skills, and lead and create impact and influence for your people. Thanks again for being here. If you have not dropped a review, please do that. It helps other leaders like yourself find this podcast. I had a friend I was so grateful for. She took a screenshot that Spotify suggested this podcast for her, and she knew me from dance. We used to be dance coaches way back in the day together, and she took a screenshot and said, "Hey, Spotify thinks I'll like this podcast." And I thought to myself, I know her. I was so grateful that she shared that my way. That means that your reviews are working. So if you have not done that, it takes about 30 seconds for you to drop a review. Please know that you bless me every single time you do that, and you help others find this podcast, sharpen those skills, and make a difference in other people's lives. Please keep going out there and creating change. We are making a difference and helping others succeed now and in the future.